attendees, welcoming all the attendees to the educational session. Before I bring up my presenter, I would like to give you a little bit of something about him once he is ready.
We're ready to go.
Thank you. We are in for a good treat this morning. Mr. Charles Beavers, VC1, is site manager at US Bank's Chicago operations site. Mr. Beaver has over 25 years of operations and customer service experience in the financial industry. This experience gives him significant expertise in providing processing solutions to large scale and complex projects. What we're going to get from this educational session is titled Intergenerational Communication and Mentoring. It's going to be presented at a town hall meeting style. This is what we're going to learn. We're going to learn that our workplaces today are intergenerational, from baby boomers, which is me, to Generation Next. The different age groups think differently, approach tasks differently, and communicate differently. To be successful in today's workplace, you must be able to work across generational lines and relate to others without judgment. This motivational session will show you the mentoring strategies and communication techniques that work in a cross-generational environment. Intergenerational communication and mentoring, Mr. Charles Beasley. Mr. Charles Beasley, intergenerational communication and mentoring.
Thank you. Just a little follow-up for everyone. Thank you very much. I began this journey in the third quarter of 2018 when I participated in a virtual Toastmasters meeting with US Bank's Club in St. Louis. And I asked myself, why is there not a US Bank Toastmasters Club in Chicago? And then the journey began. I said, we must do this. And I had met with two colleagues who was on the same conference call / WebEx as myself. And we started US Bank Toast of Chi-Town, the third quarter of 2018, and we officially chartered in the spring of 2019. That's when my journey began as president of US Bank Toast of Chi-Town. What keeps me going in Toastmasters at this point? Helping others develop their communication skill sets while simultaneously developing my communication skill sets and my assessment of how people communicate and how we can communicate better. I undertook this intergenerational communications presentation through visiting other Toastmaster clubs, work experiences, communication experiences with both volunteering and through my church parish. So let's begin the journey. Today's objectives. We're going to have a course overview, which we just did. We're going to have an opening poll so we can see where people are at, what generation they're in. We're going to talk about intergenerational communications. We're going to have a breakout session. We're going to discuss philosophy and differentiation. And we're going to talk about mentoring. And I'm going to leave you with some handouts today that you can do a self-evaluation of yourself. And I also would encourage you to take the documents to your club and have club members do an evaluation, because this is a holistic approach. At this time, let's send out a poll so we can see just where everyone is and what generations they think or that they know that they are. Thank you. Madam Zoom Master. Are we able to send out the poll?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, we see our poll question. And I would like to ask all participants to reflect. And you may know which generation you align with. This is very, very important because we're in a workplace now, we're in a Toastmaster Club environment where we have multiple generations. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? People from different generations have different values and different traits. So I just want to see and sample the audience to see just what sampling that we have here today that decided to join this very informational session on the different generations. And we'll give it a minute. And I'll give you a hint. This is all age groups. And Zoom Master, let me know when you have a good sampling. I know we'll give it a minute.
If we could put our answers in the chat, we weren't able to the actual poll where you put in the number. So if you could drop your numbers in the chat, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Generation X, baby boomers, excellent. Okay, let's dive in, and I'm going to give you some information and detail on the actual generations. Madam Zoom Master, are we ready to go back to the presentation?
Yes, we are.
Okay, very good. Oops. Oops, messed up. Which one is this? Madam Zoom Master, you see my screen?
No, not yet.
Now where?
Go to share.
Okay.
You should be able to share now.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen? The
Yes.
greatest generation, the
Yes.
birth years started in 1901. We all know why this was the great generation. These Americans, these heroes made the ultimate sacrifice during this time frame due to World War II, the Great Depression. They were very cooperative. They were good team players. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, I've been to Toastmaster clubs where we have people that are living longer and they're actively engaged from this generation. It's not going. The Traditionalists, birth years 1925 to 1945. Now pay attention, everyone, to this slide. Doesn't seek feedback. Face-to-face conversations are preferred. Emotional maturity. Key characteristics of this generation. You need to know these skill sets, and this is general. This isn't, it may be some one-offs, but studies have found that these skill sets or traits are very prevalent in this age group and in this generation. Very important for club dynamics. Baby boomer. Doesn't appreciate feedback. Isn't that something? Prefers in-person communications. 1946 to 1964. I know quite a few of us are baby boomers. Generation X, birth years 1965, 1981. They will they seek feedback. Okay. They communicate in a direct manner. You may have experienced this. Some of them just get straight to the point. Millennials, Generation Y, birth years 1982. Feedback was requested frequently. They can't get enough of it. I don't know if you've experienced that. They always want feedback. They communicate primarily digitally. You may have experienced that. You need to know that, because when you have your club dynamics in the workplace, we got everybody together. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody is valued. And we have to find a way to bridge the gaps. iGen Generation Z, they're creative, they're tech orientated. You may have experienced that. They're always on their gadgets, and they're self-directed. Birth years 2001 to 2012. And now the present, the new people. Generation Alpha, birth years 2013 to 2025. Traits and characteristics are currently being defined. And now we will go into our breakout room. And I have a question, Madam Zoo Master, as you put everybody in the room. So at this point, Madam Zoo Master, I'll turn over the screen to you.
You see my message, Mr. Beavers?
Stop sharing. Okay.
Check your message, Mr. Beavers.
Yeah, I stopped sharing and it says leave room. You want me to click on that?
No, sir. No breakout rooms were allocated, so we're going to be in one group.
Oh,
Sorry about.
okay, no problem. We'll move forward. So can you, the breakout room question and response, can you just put that on the screen, Michelle?
Okay.
And we'll just have a group discussion. So the breakout room wasn't allocated and we move forward. And that's good because we're all together. Okay, there are 4 primary influences shaping our communication patterns and preferences. We can appreciate this. Family, culture, what environment we're in, and our history. What role do each of these 4 influences play in your shaping your communication style? Does anybody have this open forum? We all in one breakout room. Does anybody have anything to share on what shaped their communication style?
For me, it's all of them. Because without history, you don't know how to take on anything. And your environment is truly the way you as a Toastmaster, you're supposed to know your room or know, I forgot that what they're saying, know your audience, yes. And as for culture, culture is everything. So, and family, if your all these drive your communication style.
That's correct. Thank you, Ivory. Anybody else want to share?
I would like to say that I have been so caught up with communication styles as it relates to Toastmasters that I need to be more focused on communication as it relates to my family, especially my daughters. I have one that is a Gen X, I have one that is a millennium, and then of course there are the grandchildren who are so tech savvy that they teach me how to communicate with them. The influences of being able to connect with them is key. As Ivy was saying, you have to do everything you possibly can to keep up. You can't just get stuck on one thing. I was stuck on being a baby boomer until my children became adults. So now I have to reconform my communication style as it relates to them and other people that I come in contact with from the top to the bottom. So I am in total agreement with Ivory.
Anyone else want to share? I have a
Yes,
story and I'll share mine. Go ahead,
I
Sharon.
am in agreement with all of this. Not only Toastmaster, but I do community work. I work at various shelters here in my community. I speak with people from all ethnic backgrounds and all ages. I am a traditionalist. I came up where we are to be seen and not heard. So dealing with other people and especially listening to their children. And I'm always saying now to myself, of course, when I was that age, I couldn't say that. I couldn't speak to my parents that way or ask questions that way. So this has been a learning. I need your information. We need to hold this at our family reunion because we have various age groups and this could cut down a lot of child abuse.
I will send this PowerPoint to Valerie and she can send it out. And Sharon, thank you very much for sharing. Anyone else before I chime in?
Well, I want to say this, and Sharon brought back something in my head. You know, my daughter, she sometimes has a smart mouth, and you know that goes through me. And I'm saying, you know what, it's going to pay off in the long run. Let her. Then talk to her, just communicate back and forth. Because if I talk to my parents the way my daughter talks to me, I'd have been knocked into the next century. But it's, you know, you squash down all that. You when you're telling them you don't have a voice, you squash down that. That's why I'm in Toastmasters, because I didn't have a voice, and Toastmasters brought the voice out of me.
Yeah, same with me. When I came to Toastmasters, I was married and I stuttered. And between Toastmasters and my husband, I think I've overcome the stuttering. So it's been very good.
I'll share something with everyone. The hardest thing that I've seen people do is not judge. When people speak, they're doing the best they can do. And so Sharon, by you sharing that, just that moment, it's phenomenal. And what got me going with this whole intergenerational communications is I sat in my club meeting and I'm learning to bite my tongue and just listen. My daughter told me the same thing. She said, you talk, you interrupt. And I looked at it, she's a millennial, and this is based on age. I looked at my traits, I look at their traits, we got to try to get along. And so I have to, like Deborah said, I got to adjust. And so I just sit there and purposely like put glue on my mouth and just sit there and listen. And I hear you, I'm actually listening to them. So very, very interesting. And Ivory, I sympathize with you correctly. You are right. It's based on family. how you were brought up, the culture you were around,
Yeah.
what kind of environment you were in, and like Sharon, you said this should be good around family reunions. You're exactly right. Because I align with the traditionalists because I like to sit down and talk and listen and learn what they've experienced so I can share that with others. So now in my Toastmasters Club meeting, I just sit there and try to listen. And oftentimes they say, "You're not paying attention." I say, "Yes, I am. I'm learning something about you. So then I can make our group better. So we understand each other and we can even get along." So when you're having a bad day, I may go about my expressions in one manner. You're a different generation. If you're a millennial, you may have a different philosophy how you express your emotion. And like Sharon just said, older generations or mature generations, if you want to look at it, they kept that stuff in. They did not show that. Okay. Anybody have anything else before we move forward?
Yeah.
Mr.
hey, Sean,
Beavers, Miss Holloway has her hand
Oh,
raised.
please.
I just wanted to chime in. So in my house, there are 4 generations. Well, 3 generations. Me, my mom is 94. I'm my age, and my daughter is 26. But the thing is, I look at the communication styles in our house, and I agree with you, Ivory, and you, Charles, when you talk about how the way you have to talk to your daughter or your daughters when you say they don't listen. And me and my daughter, that is a battle for us all the time. But it's funny because my mom, who was 94, says the same thing about me. I don't listen. And I think I'm like you, Charles. I'm the one, I sit back. I'm learning not to say anything. I'm learning to just control everything. And the first thing my daughter say to me is, "Mom, you're not listening to me." I'm like, "I'm listening. I'm paying attention. I'm just not saying anything." But then I have my mom, who's 94, when she's talking to me, saying the same thing. "Well, you're not listening." And I'm like, it's amazing how I'm listening to you all with the generations, the millennials and the traditionalists. And it's like I'm getting the same thing that my daughter's getting, but I think I'm more open to listening and hearing it. But I do give my opinion a lot. But it's amazing. Just I deal with a lot of youth every day, and it's amazing how these youth they're so boisterous about everything under the sun. They don't have a problem with voicing their opinion, saying what they say. So I don't think like Ivy was saying, some of the things that these kids say today. I know my mother probably would have smacked me straight under the table. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that these millennials are very boisterous because the young lady who taped that video of George Floyd, that was phenomenal. And if we were living in that time, would we have done that? What would we have done if that was us seeing something like that? Or we have put it on video or voiced our opinion or been out there marching? What would we have done in our time? So I'm kind of glad these millennials are like that, even though sometimes it can be aggravating and getting on your nerve. But I'm just glad that they're more voiceless because I see with their voice, a lot of things are getting put out on the forefront now. That's all I have to say.
Very good. Any feedback for Sherry?
Yes, I agree with her. I work with a group here in Lansing. It's called Common Ground. And after the George Floyd incident, of course, we had our little vandalism and some town uprisings, but we have this group and we're working together. And one thing now I was working back in the civil rights days with Dr. King and H. Rap Brown. And now to see these youth coming up in the movement and hearing their voice is totally different than what they want now. They want it now. And to work with them to make sure that now is not a violent now has been very effective. So yes,
Yes.
I am so glad that I'm in this room listening. So we have a meeting on Wednesday, and I'm sure that I will learn something today that I can share with them on Wednesday.
That's the key. Help others. So now we have to move forward, but I got one last item to talk about. Should we look down on those who use Ebonics as a form of communication?
Not at all.
Why is that looked down upon? Why? Does anybody know why?
Okay. Now, in the business, now I'm looking at it 2 different ways. I used to be the youngest guy at work. Now I'm the oldest guy leading a bunch of people in between the young people coming in and the old. And when you're having a conversation, you think Ebonics, you want people to be successful in life. Now, there are some words that cross everybody. Like when you say, you know what I mean, man? That I hear that every day. But some of, no, it cannot. Ebonics is okay in the street, but not in the workplace. I'm sorry. That's how I feel.
That's true. We used to say there's a Michigan Avenue voice, and then there's a voice that you do at home. The Michigan Avenue voice, where you crossed your T's and dotted your I's.
Mm-hmm.
You don't bring that stuff to the streets.
Very good. Anyone else before we move forward? Okay, Madam Zoom Master, let's go back to the our main session, and I'll share my PowerPoint.
You're all clear.
Okay. Okay, everybody is an individual and is unique. We do understand that. We are not to group people in some type of cycle or spiral. Everybody's different. Everybody has unique experiences. Everybody brings something to the table. There are shared societal experiences for each generation. We have to understand that when we're in a group of people across different age groups. These experiences help shape our assumptions. That's a key word, assumptions. Hold on, everyone, a little technical. Okay, we got it. Philosophy and differentiation. You got differences in people. Everyone has to have self-awareness of how they're communicating and how others are interpreting it. As people or individuals, we need to reflect, and we also need to be generative of applications of strengths. So when I say the word strengths, I'm a big strengths person, and there's something called Strengths Finder. You may or may not be aware of that, where it's a self-assessment of your strengths. So one of the things I focus on at my place of employment is not worrying about people's weaknesses or what they're not doing things correct at. I worry about what they're strong at and try to get them to be even stronger in this area. Teams. Teams are healthy and functional when there is an alignment around the core areas of knowledge, purpose, and a key word, ladies and gentlemen, trust. If you don't have trust within your Toastmasters Club, if you don't have trust within your volunteer activity, if you don't have trust in the workplace, if you don't trust your boss, it's going to be problems. Trust is a big thing today. And obviously you have to have trust for family. Culture, as we talked about, people come from different cultures and it's sustained through common language, shared experiences, an individual and a collective narrative. Okay. Descriptive, not prescriptive. Strengths describe what talents you have, not how to use them. Generative, not general. Strengths are generative only when they bring life to you and to others. Does everybody see that? Not being selfish, others. Strengths are sustained when there's an environment for growth. Environmental, not an event. Does everybody understand that? You have to have an environment that promotes strengths or positivity, not an environment where you're beating up people, not an environment where you're judging, not an environment where you're critical. Transformational, not transactional. Strengths have a potential to transform the way you understand yourself. And look what it says, ladies and gentlemen, others. So it's not about you. It's about the team. It's about the Toastmasters Club. And you can use this at work or at play. If you're in a bowling league, if you have an exercise club, it's all about us. It's not about yourself. The 4 domains of strength: executing, thinking, relating, and influencing. Those are key, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at these 4 pillars, that applies not only to your Toastmasters Club, this applies to your family planning events. This applies to church activities. This applies to community activities. Everything you do, these 4 pillars of strengths should be involved. When you have an activity, aren't you thinking about the activity? Thinking how you want it to go, thinking how much it's going to cost, thinking who can contribute, influencing. When you have something going on, don't you try to influence people and not try to just dictate and tell them what to do? In the workplace, aren't you trying to influence coworkers? If you're a manager, aren't you trying to influence subordinates? And relating. In your family life, are we trying to relate to each other? We may be older, we may be younger, we may be in a different generation, but we all have to live and get along together. Toastmaster Club. No one's better than the other person. No one knows more than the other person. We all have to relate to each other and support each other. Executing. Once we have a plan, how are we going to get the plan going? If we out recruiting people for Toastmasters Club, we come up with that idea, who is going to be the point person? How is that point person going to recruit people? How is that point person going to execute getting people to actually sign up? We'll get a lot of people to show up for orientation or show up for recruitment nights, but a lot of people don't actually want to pay the registration, or they don't sign the paperwork. They don't follow through. Why is that? Did we not plan the activity through for recruitment? What's missing? Descriptive, not prescriptive. Strengths describe what talents you have, not how you use them. Mentorship. Now, this is a big topic, and we're going to have an open dialogue about this. I got some information on this. So some of us are still working in the workplace. Some of us involved in the community, and Toastmasters promotes all new members having a mentor. We know that. We understand that. Club officers, they should be targeting someone to mentor them. Maybe the previous person held office. My thing is, we have to have the right mentor. Everyone is not meant to be a mentor. And you in the workplace today, everybody wants to, hey, you need a mentor, find a mentor. They have these Mentor Connect programs, mentor, 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 mentor. That's the key word of the day. We all know it applies to work, it applies to the community, and when you're volunteering for activities, who's the mentor? What's the mentor? And I got an argument about that, especially in the workplace. From my experiences, and we'll have open dialogue. If you don't have an advocate, someone talking positively about you, and you're not nowhere in the room, you're not anywhere in the conversation. I have a lot of employees, friends, and colleagues who get frustrated. They want to know, why can't I move up in the organization? Why am I not getting promoted? I've went through Mentor Connect. I've got a mentor. A, do you have the right mentor? B, if the mentor is giving you feedback, do you understand that feedback is a gift? And are you applying that feedback? But the key thing I found, you got to have an advocate, especially in management, especially in the corporate world. If you don't have anybody promoting you, you're not going anywhere. And I knew I had an advocate. How did I know? I heard like a fly on the wall what was said about me in a positive light. And I kept telling people and coworkers and peers, you have to have an advocate. Stop getting frustrated. The first thing companies want to do is throw a mentor at you. Okay, that's fine. But who's promoting you while you know we're in the room? Mentorship. Are you really listening to the mentor? If they're giving you ideas and feedbacks of how to self-improve yourself, are you really listening and not just hearing? Yeah, I hear you. Are you listening and applying what they're saying? Learning and not being a know-it-all. Well, this mentor's telling me stuff, I already know that. Do you really know it? Do you really know it? Are you open to what he or she is telling you? Or he or she is advising you? Or are you just a know-it-all? You signed up for a mentor program, but you're not applying what's being given to you. This is key, ladies and gentlemen. Leverage relationships. No matter how young someone is, no matter how old someone is, I found out with cross-generational communication, everyone can help and assist everyone. You would be surprised. You must leverage the relationships no matter how old you are or how young you are. Everyone brings something to the table. And feedback is truly a gift. This is the hardest thing in the world for some people to take. You give a speech, an evaluator evaluates you, and you don't like the evaluation. That person is giving you honest and open and true feedback. Why don't you respect what's being given to you? Are you a know-it-all? Are you not open to receiving feedback? Is it based on your generational background? Think about that.
You have a raised hand with Ms.
Oh.
Washington, Mr. Beavers.
I didn't see that. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I want to go back to your concept a moment about an advocate. I really like that idea. I really like the concept. I've never heard anybody articulate it that way. And my question is there a way that you can cultivate that? How do you make that happen?
Yes. It's an old adage, and some of us have heard that before. Words are good, but deeds and actions are precious. When people see you perform, when people see you execute a plan, and it's the old pyramid effect. I found that out a long time ago. Your manager, your club president is rubbing off what you can contribute, and it feeds up the food chain. If you're not bringing anything to the table, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have anything coming. So I tell people all the time, make sure the cup is half full and you're not looking at everything as it being half empty. You're constantly being negative and you're constantly complaining. Negative energy is seen and not talked about. And another thing, Sandra, since you asked, first impressions are a last impression. And guess what? When people get a negative impression or people say, you know what, Charles Beavers has reached his potential, it's hard to change that perception. You can have all the mentors in the world, but guess what? That advocate, and a lot of people don't even understand that, is the toughest thing to get. And I knew I had an advocate, or I know I have an advocate. And that's the most powerful thing in the world, where you're not even in that big boardroom or in that meeting with other managers or supervisors at your job, and you know that you're being talked about in a positive light. That is the best feeling in the world, and you must not be cocky about it. You must try to help others, which is what I try to do now, see the light and show them this is what you must do to succeed. You're competing on a worldwide stage now. And see, Toastmasters helps me with that. It helps me with the communication. And the big thing is I always volunteer to be an evaluator when people need help, because I learned so much by just evaluating people and giving them that feedback. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I learn about myself when I do the evaluation process. And the hardest thing in the world is check those biases. Everyone has a bias. Let's be honest about it. but keep it to yourself and learn to adapt and overcome that bias. And the last thing, but not leastly, we're looking at mentorship and advocate. Do not judge. It's the hardest thing that I always have to overcome. Keep my personal opinions to myself and be objective at all costs. Any other questions?
We have about 5 more minutes,
Okay.
Mr. Beavers.
Excellent. So we have to go really, really fast. If anyone has any questions, if not, I will proceed.
Go ahead, Mr. Gwynn.
Oh, okay. I thought
Go
you
ahead,
were
Ivy.
moving. Okay.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add to what you were saying there. You have to have an advocate, but you have to do something yourself. You have to ask for mentors. And once people see you and see what you can do, they're going to be in the room talking about you. Because, you know, for myself at work, I have several. I have people always, let's get Ivory to do this. That's how you get your projects at work. You got somebody that believe in you, say, let's give that project to him or her. That's what an advocate does for you. Always give you something that puts you in front of everybody.
Yes. Now, you know what I tell them, Ivory? I know we're going a little bit farther. I said, why don't you give John or Jane a chance? You know what? Give them a shot. They just look at me. They always want to pick someone that they know will get the job done. And I try to tell them this could be an excellent developmental tool, and they just look. Okay, these are 2 additional references you may have heard of. Strength Finder by Tom Rath. Also, dig your well before you are thirsty. Isn't that a profound statement? In other words, build your networking group before you need it. Thank you for attending this morning's session. And Madam Zoom Master, over to you. Thank you, Ivory. You're the last 2. You got it, Michelle?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Beavers.
Thank you. And let me know when you need some more help with that demo team.
Definitely.
Take care.
You too. So I'm going to turn this back over to Deborah, our facilitator.
We want to give Mr. Beavers a round of applause. Wasn't he excellent? Oh my gosh, I learned so many things today on communicating with family members and friends. Let's give him a big hand. On behalf of District 103, we would like to thank you, Mr. Beavers, with this certificate of appreciation. You were awesome. I am going to post in the chat that everyone is invited to fill out this survey that is posted in the chat. Mr. Beavers, did you still want me to put the other question in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you.
You're welcome. In the chat is a file that Mr. Beavers would like everyone to copy or save and work with on your own. I know for a fact I'm going to keep them because it's going to be phenomenal in order for us to keep the lines of communication open. Are there any questions? We have 1 minute. You have any other closing remarks, Mr. Beavers?
5 seconds.
Nope. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
You
you
may
for the
leave the
program.
breakout room, but not leave the conference. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.